As you see, I actually want to talk about Active Directory. Like when we talk about Active Directory, without it, we'll be in big trouble. If I don't have Active Directory, that means I'm actually on a work group. It means it's a peer-to-peer network. It means everything is managed locally on each machine, and work groups only support up to 10 computers. Imagine you're working for a company that has 200 employees and everything is on a work group where you have to go and do all types of configuration on each local system in terms of creating, managing user accounts, permissions, restrictions, policies, delegation versus when I have a domain that's called a client server network. When I say a client server network, which means I do have Active Directory on the network, and which means I installed Active Directory on the server, that server became a what? A domain controller. Now, Active Directory itself depends on a protocol called LDAP, right? So there's an actual protocol called LDAP, lightweight directory access protocol. And the protocol that it uses for authentication, of course, when you log on to a system is Cerberus. Active Directory has different components. I have my physical and logical. Like when you think about a forest, what do you guys see in a forest is actually trees. The trees have names, that's a domain name. Then they have actual branches, organizational units, and objects are in the forest like animals, right? Well, look at this. The forest, what makes up a forest? Like I just need one server. Once I set up Active Directory on the first server, that server is called the domain controller. That's also called my parent domain. That's also my forest name. Okay. Now, what makes up a forest? One or more trees. What makes up a tree? One or more domains. Like in a forest, you can have multiple trees. Like, what's an example of a tree? I could have a parent domain such as udemy.local. Then I could have a child domain such as support.udemy.local. Both of those domains belong to the same tree. So that's one tree because they have the same namespace as udemy.local. They belong to a forest called udemy.local. And of course, I have organizational units under there, such as departments, sales, tech, HR. We're going to be discussing all of this in more details in labs in future sections. But of course, I have objects such as users, groups, computers, right? And the physical components, which means what is a site, is a physical location. Company that I'm supporting has multiple physical locations, one in New York and one in Connecticut. And we're going to be doing this in an actual lab. At DC is the actual server that has Active Directory installed on it. Now, all of this will never work without the configuration of DNS. If my DNS server crashes, my entire domain is gone. If I want to do restrictions, I have to configure GPOs. As you see, if you guys go through my actual class, you'll see lots of sections. We have DNS, we have GPOs, we have Active Directory. Everything will be covered in details, as you say, 100% as labs, as you actually work in the field, right? So what I need over here is, as I mentioned in my earlier lecture, is of course I need my VMware player installed. I only have requested 16 gigs of RAM. I have 64 gigs of RAM on my system, but 16 is actually fine. You can still work and do the labs that I'm going to be doing in the class. So why don't we go ahead and start with the actual section, and we're going to start working hands on from now and until the end. All right. So we'll see you folks soon. All right. Bye.